Hello everybody, it's me, Jimmy James. I'm coming at you with another tier list video. This time we're going to be focusing on archers in the 1v1 gameplay. Before we get going, right, gonna talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing here. You can pause the screen if you really want to digest this information, but basically we're focusing on the mid-ELO here, that sort of intermediate style of gameplay that is it's gonna look a little bit different at the pros. Mid-ELO players are still really knowledgeable, really good players, often have hundreds, if not thousands, of games played, lots of hours logged. But it's just the efficiency, the micro, the multitasking, just all the things that really make a person great. That tends to be deficient at a mid-elo level. And of course, I say this as somebody who's a mid-elo player myself and has a lot to improve upon. So what we're really going to be looking at here when we think about 1v1 archer attributes, right? What makes a good civilization? We think about viability of the foot archer line, right? That's like the nexus between strength and affordability. We're going to think about this for cavalry archers. Does a civilization have fully upgraded skirmishers, right? For trash wars, having that +2 armor in Imperial Age to deal really well with arbalist civilizations. Economic bonuses that increase early aggression or sustain production, archer unique units, how they factor in, and then finally having complementary units in the late game. 1v1s tend to feature a bit more diverse army compositions than, say, in a team game, where that would not really be something we would consider very strongly. So, with that, now that we've kind of given a basis of how we're going to make this decision, let's go ahead and jump in. And we are going to start off with the Aztecs here. And Aztecs are going to wind up in the B tier. Aztecs have some really nice things going for them. Their military buildings produce units faster. They have Arbalist and Bracer. And the unique technology Atlatl gives their skirmishers extra damage, extra range. You can get that in Castle Age. So you're set up really well. The problem with Aztecs is they don't get Thumb Ring and they don't get the last armor upgrade. The former really hurts your DPS, your damage per second, how much firepower you're actually putting out there in the field, and it really forces you into skirmishers. And that just makes you kind of predictable, right? You have a really good economy that helps you at all phases of the game, but it's that predictability. You just get to late game and you really need to go to skirms. You can stay on Arbalist, but unless you're really already putting somebody away and you've really diminished them, it's just going to be a little bit harder. So I think it's going to wind up in the B tier. Berbers are going to also wind up in the B tier. Look, you get fully upgraded crossbow, fully upgraded skirmisher. You have the Genitor as a unique unit, which is a mounted skirmisher. That has its situational usages. And then the Camel Archer, right, does a bonus damage against other cavalry archers, and it's just a very strong archer unique unit in your own right. Problems with Berbers is you're missing Arbalist, and that's pretty major because you just can't mass crossbows in Castle Age. The Genitor, right, like sounds really good in theory. You know, it's pitched as a unit that can keep up with your pretty mobile army because you're probably making cavalry as the Berbers, but it just can be hard to use. It's just not nearly as cost efficient as a skirmisher. And so just getting that mass up, you also can't mass them on the transition from feudal to castle age, so that's pretty tricky as well. And lastly, Berbers just don't have a real eco bonus that helps you get to that archer comp. So they're going to wind up in the B tier. They have some options, but kind of a so-so. Bohemians are next, and Bohemians also going to wind up here in the B tier. The pluses for them is that you get Arbalest with Bracer, so those are two major criteria you got to check off. You can get Chemistry and Castle Age, which can give you some really powerful crossbows and allow you to get to hand cannons, which is very cool. Talking about complementary units, their halberdiers do 20%, or maybe might be 25% extra damage. Either way, right? They are your halberdiers, right? Are going to be really good to pair with those Arbalists in late game. So you have a pretty nice, unit composition right there of a gold unit and a trash unit. You know, the real problem with the Bohemians is that you're missing thumb ring. That's huge. Probably offsets the damage from um, from actually having chemistry. So you might not even be doing that actually that much more extra damage. So that's a an empirical question, and somebody could look into that. Shout out Spirit of the Law. But yeah, I don't know, man. Uh, your archers can feel kind of weak, and you miss the cavalry archer line completely. So I don't know. It just can get really troubling, and you don't have a lot of power units to go along. Again, this isn't an overall Civ video, but when you just think about how you're going to support your archers, you at least do have the halberdiers, and that's good. I think that lands them in B tier, but you do fall off a little bit. So, all right, Britons are definitely not going to be a B tier Civ. They're definitely S tier. I mean, Britons. What can you say? They're Their foot archers have insane range. You can even yeoman actually also gives your skirmishers extra range as well. And given that your skirmishers are only missing thumb ring, which doesn't affect the skirmisher line very much, man, like you actually have some really powerful skirmishers as well. The longbow as a unique unit is really fantastic, surprisingly cheap. You have your archery ranges, produce archers 20% faster, helps you at every phase of the game. Uh, Having the wood discount on your town centers gives you great synergy to be able to make archers and boom at the same time. I mean, Britons are just one of those civilizations where their archers are great, if not overwhelming, in basically every phase of the game. And they can just be a really hard matchup to play against. Really, the only downsides are that your cavalry archers really aren't all that viable, and you're missing thumb ring, but you just have so much making up for it that Britons are going to be easy S tier. Okay, Bulgarians. Bulgarians are going to go in the D tier, and I don't know if we're going to have an F tier in this video, but we're just going to add an F tier on the fly in case we need it. All right, we're just going to add it in case we need it. Don't know if we will. I can't remember when I made this. I'm looking at my notes, and I can't remember what exactly I have in my notes here, so we'll just have to see, right? But Bulgarians are going to wind up in D tier, even if there's an F tier, and I'll tell you why. Bulgarian heavy cavalry archers are fully upgraded with the exception of the last armor upgrade, right? Which is pretty good. So you have Parthian tactics, and that's better than the last armor upgrade for your heavy cav archers because you do extra damage to the spearman line. And not only that, but you have some of the best hussars in the game to pair with that unit. So going something like heavy cav archer hussar is a really nice archer-based composition that you can go for. The problem with Bulgarians is you're missing Expo and Arbalest completely. You're missing that last armor. So, even though your heavy cav archers will be okay and definitely viable, your skirmishers can fall off and not feel as strong. And you just don't really have an eco bonus that helps you get to archers. So, it's just, it's probably not what you would prefer to do. But if you want to go with it. And also, I would say as well, you have an eco bonus of your blacksmith upgrades costing minus 50% food. Actually, in a way, that really does kind of help you get to archers because, let's say you're going for a unit and you go in for knights or something, and you think, you know what, I really need to go heavy cavalry archer. I'm never going to be able to fight, say, against paladins or something like that. Well, with your blacksmith upgrades being cheaper, it's a lot easier to transition to a different unit. So, yeah, I actually think you do have a little bit of an eco bonus there, but it's not enough to move you into the C tier. They're still a D tier archer civilization. All right, next up we have the Burgundians, and oh yeah, this is an F. This is definitely an F. You have nice eco, but other than that, you don't get arbs, you don't get bracer. Your heavy cavalry archers are not very good. You just don't have a lot of options. You do get really good hand cannoneers, though, and that is often an important part of your army. Oh, man, I didn't think about that. Because your skirms are going to be good without bracer, but that's not going to affect your hand cannoneers. You know what? We're going to make a change here on the fly, improvise a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and bump them up to D tier, solely on the strength of the fact that they're hand cannons have been buffed recently, And I actually think there's situations where they can be quite strong. So yeah, I think that they do have an option at the archery range. So that'll get them into D tier. Um, and all right, next is Burmese, right? Staying in the D tier as well. We're gonna see Burmese. You know, you have a Rambai as a unique unit, cavalry archer class. Does pretty high damage, kind of inaccurate, but there's good mobility. It's a pretty strong unit if you can get it massed up. The problem with Burmese is you're missing the last two armor upgrades. Uh, so on your archers, which makes your archer units really weak. Um, it means that you really can't take into skirmishers to counter other archers, and it also means you die to things like crossbows pretty hard. You don't get arbalist anyways, so yeah, Burmese are just kind of rough. But on the strength of the Arambai alone, I think they can get into D tier. All right, next up on our list is the Byzantines, and the Byzantines are going to go into the A tier. Yeah, might be a little bit surprising, but hear me out here, right? You get fully upgraded arbalist. You get fully upgraded skirmishers that are extremely cheap. You have hand cannoneers. You have extremely cheap halberdiers to pair with your arbalist or skirmishers. You have a cheap Imperial Age that helps you turbo into arbalist quicker than your opponent, right? Because you don't need a crazy amount of food to get all the upgrades and keep making out units like you need to do, say, with a unit like Knights, and you have all these discounts for your trash units. You can actually use that cheap imp to your advantage. Well, the only downsides for Byzantines is that heavy cavalry archer is not really an option for you, and there's not a bonus that's helping you get to arbalists or crossbows or archers early in the game, right? The cheap imp is more to help you get to that fast imp arbalist transition. But you don't really have anything helping you in feudal age or castle age. But still, you just have a lot going for you, and I thought at the outset this might be more of a B tier civ, but when you really look at how the civ plays out and and everything you have at the range, I think it's got to be an A tier civ. I really do. All right. Next on our list, we have Celts, and Celts are going to go into the D tier. So here's the thing. Celts are missing Arbalest. You're missing Bracer. You're missing Thumb Ring. You're missing the last armor upgrade, right? By mid-Castle Age, your crossbows are just not viable. They're going to die hard. So why did they make it into D tier? The Celt wood chopping bonus, giving your lumberjacks a greater production speed. That is fantastic for feudal archer rushes in the early game, right? So you can really crank out archers without it damaging your economy too much. You often see archer openings with Celts. So you know what? That gets them in there. That gets them in there. D tier. Archers do have a place in civilization. It's just extremely situational, and you have to transition to something else. Okay, next up on our list we have the Chinese, and Chinese are going to go into the S tier. Yes, they are going to go into the S tier. Tell you why, right? You get fully upgraded arbalist, fully upgraded skirmishers. Unique unit with the Chukonu is incredibly strong, especially against siege rams, which archer civilizations often die to. To support your units, you have any trash composition you want. Fully upgraded halbs, fully upgraded skirms, fully upgraded light cav, only missing the Hussar upgrade, but you do get the +4 armor, so it's still a really good unit. And you have eco bonuses that make it easy to get there, usually at a mid-ELO level. The Chinese start, which is a bit unusual, probably only gets you a 1 villager advantage as opposed to the 2 villager advantage you often see at the pro level where pro players are extremely efficient. But you just have so many options. The technology's all being cheaper for Chinese as you go through the game, helps you out. And not only that, but you also have pretty decent heavy cavalry archers. Right? You're really only missing Parthian tactics, which is kind of a bummer, but is not bad at all. So, you got to get, Chinese just, it just feels like they can do almost anything. And, with that many options, they got to make it into the S tier, right? There's no bones about it. All right, next we're going to go with the Cumins. And Cumins are going to wind up in C tier. Okay, the Kipchak, their unique unit, is really special. It profiles a bit like a cross between a Chukunu and a Mangudai. Both of those are really strong unique units in their own right. Um, it does a lot of damage because it fires multiple arrows. It can be very effective against rams and siege weapons. Problem is you're missing Bracer, so your Imperial Age version is pretty capped on your damage output, though the Elite upgrade to the Kipchak does not cost gold, which in 1v1s can be very important. And it's a pretty cheap unit in general. I think it's only 60 wood and 35 gold, so it's a very cheap unit. Um, Heavy cavalry archers is not that viable. You're not getting arbalists, so you're missing some things. Missing Bracer really hurts. It's going to hurt your skirmishers as well, too. So your skirmishers really fall. I mean, the other thing about Cumins that's nice is that you have cheaper ranges, right? Archery ranges. And, that can enable some interesting shenanigans in Feudal Age. I've definitely had people play against me going, say, like triple archery range production. I don't know. I think there's probably places for that in the game, but it's at least an option. And hey, even if you're only going to put down 1 or 2 ranges in Feudal Age, which is more standard, well, now you have a bunch of extra wood for doing other things. So humans are cool. Fits right nice into the C tier there. Okay. Next up, we have the Ethiopians. Ethiopians are going to go into the S tier. You know, their arbalists have the most firepower in the game because they fire faster. Your skirmishers are fully upgraded. The fact that you have the higher firing rate means that your archer line is going to be strong in all phases of the game: feudal, castle, and imperial. You get 100 food and 100 gold each time you age up, and so that makes it get you a really easy path to get all your upgrades as soon as you get to the next age. And not only that, I think what really puts the icing on the cake here is that the free pikeman upgrade that you get really enables you to get to that Expo Pike, Arbalist Halb, that composition pretty early into the game. And that can be really helpful, especially when you're going up against Knight civilizations. Knights are a much more population efficient unit than archers, but Ethiopians can actually hold their own quite strong. The only real downside for Ethiopians is your heavy cavalry archers are just not that usable, but you have so many other bonuses, and they're really good bonuses. So, Ethiopians making it into the S tier. Okay, next up we have the Franks, and the Franks they are going to be our F tier civilization. You're missing Arbalist, you're missing Bracer, you're missing the last armor, you're missing Thumb Ring. You're having a little bit of extra HP on your heavy cavalry archers. Really, it's not actually that much HP. So the fact that you don't have bloodlines really hurts you there. You don't have the best light cavalry line even to pair with heavy cavalry archers if you wanted to go with the classic kind of heavy cavalry archer and light cavalry hussar pairing. You get hand cannons, but they're just not that strong. Most of the Franks' eco bonuses are really more food oriented, with faster, consuming, berry bush. What are they called? Foragers, right? Faster working foragers, and the free farm upgrades. That's helping you. In fact, free farm upgrades, if you're going with say Men at Arms in the Expo, actually kind of hurts you because you want farms expiring in Feudal Age if you're going for Castle Age Expo, so that you can reallocate those farmers to become lumberjacks, and so you have the food to keep archer production going. Maybe get 1 or 2 town centers. So actually kind of hurts you. So Franks are going to be, because we let the Burgundians slide, since we're going to put Franks are going to be our first F tier civilization. All right, okay. Now we go to the C tier. And, alright, we're going to find Goths, the infantry civilization that we all know and love. You get Bracer, you get the last armor upgrade. You don't have a ton of bonuses, but at least you get those 2 things, and that's pretty important. But you're missing Arbalist, and you're missing Thumb Ring. And basically, your skirmishers aren't so bad with Goths, and that's a help, but you're not going to want to go deep into the archer line here. with Goths, but you know they're playable. All right, next up on our list we have the Huns, and the Huns are going to be in the B tier, right? So might be a little surprising, but I'm going to tell you why. The things they got going for them are this: the cheaper cavalry archers really comes in handy, enables really great production. It's one of the few civilizations that can play aggressive with castle age cavalry archers. Plus, you have a great eco bonus that helps you actually uh, produce those and have the wood because you're not making houses, so you're also never housed. And it's also the case too that in terms of support units, your stables work faster and you have really good light cavalry. All right, now what are the problems though? The problems that you're missing Arbalist, and so it can kind of be tough. You really got to play it a certain way to get to that cavalry archer transition. It can be a little awkward depending on what you're doing, especially if you're opening something, say, men at arms, which like I feel like in the meta these days, probably 80% of the openings that I see are men at arms now, just because even at the mid-elo level, the game has gotten a lot more aggressive. You're missing the last armor upgrade, which means your heavy cavalry archers, they're not fully upgraded. You have Parthian tactics, so it's not the biggest deal. And this really hurts your skirmishers and will hurt any remaining crossbows you have on the field. So it's really more for the fact that it really damages your skirmisher line. I think this could be an A tier archer civ at a pro level, but I think at the mid elo, transitioning to the cavalry archers might be a bit awkward. So, but still really good. Like they do one thing really well, but on the whole, it would be a B tier archer civilization. So you have like A, maybe even S tier cav archers, but that will be a video I'll do sometime in the future as well. So be on the lookout for that. Okay. Next up, we have the Ankas, and Ankas are going to keep us in the B tier. You get fully upgraded Arbalist. You have fully upgraded Skirms with potentially no minimum range, and that's pretty cool. You have Slingers available, right? It's basically the Anka's hand cannoneer, but you get them in Castle Age, and they're a nice unit. You have some good units to pair with your archers. Halbs or Kamyuks are anti-cavalry units. If you want to go double gold composition, you have eagles that can get 10 pierce armor. That's very useful if your opponent is, if you want to use that on an archer opponent, say, go after their skirmishers, something like that. It's very nice. Or if they're making archers themselves. You know, you get a lot of little eco bonuses with Ankas, and I think they can be kind of useful. The free llama can really help you get your food to get to bracer quicker, or maybe get patterned archer armor. The fact that your houses host double the population, that can help you save some wood. So, there's some things that help, but I wouldn't say that really pushes Ankas into the tier list. It's more the amount of options they have. The problem is that you don't get heavy cavalry archer, and that is something to hold against them. But you just don't have any eco bonuses for really early aggression, and you are kind of streamlined a bit too predictably into archers and eagles, and without a good bonus, um, it can't really rise higher than a B tier. Okay, Indians are gonna stay. We're just staying in the B tier. We are just chilling in the B tier here. Here's the thing with Indians. You do get fully upgraded crossbow. You get fully upgraded heavy cavalry archers and fully upgraded skirms. Very cool. You have a very strong economy. You have nice halberdiers and light cavalry to pair with the units that you go with. And you have hand cannoneers with potentially extra range late. Plus the elephant archer, which you don't see very much, but has some pretty situational uses. I mean, it's a pretty beastly unit if you can get there. The reason why Indians wind up being in the B tier is just that missing Arbalest is so huge, and the transition to heavy cavalry archer is just so predictable. Hand cannoneers, the viability of them, I think, is still kind of up in the air at the moment. And given how predictable it can just be difficult. If the elephant archer was a bit, I don't know. Sometimes I think that we're sleeping on the elephant archer, but it's just so expensive. I would say this: I think if the elephant archer costed wood and gold, as opposed to food and gold. I think that it could be, if you want to see that unit more often, if the developers are watching this video, and you should, guys, right? If the developers are watching this video, that's how I would try to fix the elephant archer. So that way you could go say like elephant archer, light cavalry, hussar. I don't know. I think that would make it playable, but right now it's just not playable. But in most situations, closed maps, maybe arena Black Forest, perhaps. But okay, moving on, we have the Italians. And Italians are going to find a spot into the A tier. Um, you know, you get extra armor on your Arbalest in Castle Age when you research that technology. Can make your Arbalest very strong in the late game. You get fully upgraded skirmishers. You have the Genoese crossbowman, which does bonus damage against cavalry, which is very nice. Very cheap hand cannons. You have an eco bonus with cheap ballistics and chemistry, right? So it can be a bit easier to get to those upgrades. So Italians are great. I think that they're almost an S tier archer civilization, but why don't they make it up there? Well, the problem is that a few reasons, right? You miss halberdiers, which that pairing where you put Arbalest with halberdiers is just really strong. Some would say almost necessary. And Genoese crossbowmen really don't make up for it because you have to make them from castles, and what do you pair with it is the question. I mean, obviously Italians have hussars, and Arbalest hussar, that is one of my favorite combinations in the game, and Italians do get that. I think that, but you still wind up in a situation where you might be vulnerable to things like cavaliers, and I don't think Genoese crossbows are the answer, particularly because they're missing range, and so they can just be an awkward unit. Um, the eco bonuses for Italians are pretty modest in terms of enabling aggression, um, and so your archers really get strong in late game. Before that, your archers are pretty generic, um, so that's a bit tricky, but still a really good civ. Almost S tier, but they're just missing a bit too much, and your heavy cavalry archers are kind of unusable. So. All right, next up on our list we have the Japanese, and Japanese are going into the A tier as well, right? So look, you get fully upgraded Arbalest, fully upgraded skirmishers, fully upgraded heavy cavalry archers. So you have a good power unit there. In fact, they're one of two civilizations, the other one being the Saracens, that have access to fully upgraded archery range. So Japanese have great archer options. You also have a really good wood saving economic bonus, so you can get great early pressure. You have a top 3 halberdier, so you can get to those really good compositions. The only problems with the Japanese are that, and you also get hand cannoneers, I should say that can be helpful as well. The only problems is that your power can just kind of trail off late, but look, we're talking more about the archer line, and you have, fully upgraded archers and even heavy cavalry archers, so you're still doing pretty good. You do have a mediocre light cavalry line, and that is often a common pairing with cavalry archers, so that can make for sort of a tricky composition if that's the route you go to. But Japanese have a lot of options, good eco, especially in the early game, maybe not as much in the late game. So yeah, Japanese, I think that's enough to get them into A tier. All right, next up we have the Khmer, and Khmer are gonna go into C tier, right? You get Arbalest and Bracer, that's great. Not needing buildings to age up can enable you to get some really ultra fast archer rushes that can be very good, very strong, and disorienting at a mid-elo level. Right? Problems, you're missing thumb ring, your heavy cavalry archer is not viable, your eco bonuses are much more food oriented, so that's not really helping you as much. And there's just really nothing special about your Arbalest or skirmishers to help them compensate, unlike, say, Aztecs, right? Which, you have pretty similar archer units there. You do get the last armor, but but Aztecs have the production eco bonus, so they can outmass you, right? Um, I actually think even the fact that Khmer lack the champion as an upgrade can really hurt if you see somebody going full skirmisher against you. Though you can just go Hussar, so that's not as big of a deal, I suppose. But let's say that they have halberdiers and skirmishers. It could be nice to have a champion in there as a trash-busting unit, and Khmer like that. So, all right. Let me see. Koreans. I think Koreans are going to put us into the A tier. You know, you get fully upgraded arbalists and skirmishers, and each age you get free archer armor upgrades. So that gives you some really nice power spikes throughout the game. Usually people research the damage bonus before the archer armor. So that can give you some powerful archer units, right? You have a unique unit in the War Wagon. It's insane, but it's very expensive to get to, but it's a really powerful option on closed maps like Arena. Otherwise, there's no real economic bonuses getting you there. You know, your power spikes for the foot archer line, I think that they tend to be more brief than other archer civilizations, and so it's good, and it's really helpful. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, your archers and your skirmishers, they're fully upgraded, but otherwise generic. So, okay. Now let's go to the Lithuanians, and Lithuanians are going to wind up in the B tier, right? I think Lithuania is one of the strongest civilizations right now. You get fully upgraded crossbow. Your heavy cavalry archers are only missing Parthian tactics, so they're quite viable. You have a top 3 skirmisher in the game with the extra armor you can get, and they move faster, which is really nice for hunting down archers basically at any point in the game. You have hand cannons. You have great trash units to pair it with the halberdiers that walk faster, and the winged hussar, which is really incredible. I mean, the really only problem is you're missing arbalist, which is huge. You're missing Parthian tactics than your heavy cavalry archers, which is a bit more of a downgrade. And you just don't have the eco bonuses to turbo production in the mid to late game. So I think archers play much more of a supporting role. And it's more your skirmishers, but your skirmishers are fantastic. So, you know, skirmishers are usually a big part of the Lithuanian army, and they are that way for a reason. Okay, next up we have the Magyars. And Magyars are going to wind up in the A tier. Look, you might not think of the Magyars as an archer civilization, but you've got to hear me out. Right? You have fully upgraded arbalist with a bonus to their line of sight. Right? Now look, you know, pro players are very aware that might not help them very much. For mid-ELO players, that's what can help you avoid a mangonel shot, or spot a villager that's trying to escape, or say put up a tower to protect their wood line. You see it, you kill it, you can win the game there. I can think of off the top of my head 3 or 4 games that because I had Magyar crossbows or archers, I saw something right on the edge of that line of sight envelope, and it helped win me the game, or helped save me as a you know, from losing a game rather. So and you get fully upgraded arbalists, so it's great. Your skirmishers are fully upgraded. You have probably the best heavy cavalry archers in the late game with the recurve bow technology. You have some of the best hussars in the game, maybe the best hussars in the game if you factor in the Magyar hussar. And you get halberdiers. I mean, so you have a great archery range. I mean, you're missing hand cannoneers, and you do miss the last armor on your infantry, and I think squires. So arbalist halb pairing isn't the best in the game, but Magyars have a lot going at the range. Don't sleep on the Magyar range. That's what if there's any takeaway I would give, that would be this. All right, next up, Malay. Gonna put Malay in the B tier here. You do get full upgraded arbalists and skirms. You got halberdiers. You know, but otherwise, the uptimes for Malay, the fact that they go through the ages faster, for newer players, I think is a real problem because you're just not used to it usually. You don't run into, at the mid-ELO level, I don't run into Malay a lot on the ladder on open maps. Maybe on Arena, but I don't know. There's not a lot of eco bonuses getting you there, but you do get fully upgraded arbalists, skirms, and I think that's enough. Plus having halberdiers, that's enough to make it into B tier. All right, Mallians. Mallians are going to go into the C tier, y'all. You do get Arbalist, you get a little bit cheaper ranges, but you're missing Bracer, you're missing Halberdier, you really don't have heavy cav archers that are any good. It's not a lot you can do. It's awkward. In the Castle Age, you can play it, but otherwise, it's just not really worth it. Okay, Mayans, bumping up easily into the S tier. Cheap, fully upgraded Arbalist, Skirmishers, fully upgraded, and you get an extra spear that can really help you wreak havoc on rams. The unique unit, Plumed Archer, is one of the best in the game. Mines are just good at all phases of the game. You have a great economy. The only downside is that you just don't have heavy cavalry archers, but you have so many other things going for you. Again, you know, it doesn't change the fact that we got an S tier here. All right, now we have the Mongols. Mongols are going to wind up as an A tier civilization as well. You have really high DPS heavy cavalry archers with Parthian tactics, so your cavalry archers is doing very well. Obviously, the Mangudai cavalry archer is probably the best unique unit in the game. Very high DPS, bonus damage against siege, enables you to snipe all kinds of expensive enemy units. But one of the things people forget about the Mongols is you also get Arbalist, Bracer, and Thumb Ring. Right, you're only missing the last armor, so your Arbalists are pretty decent. They're quite viable, and you have a great early game economic bonus for aggression that can enable you to get some fast archer rushes. And you have a pretty strong Hussar, right? That's a nice pairing for your Mangudai, your Cav Archers, your Arbalists as well. The really things that are holding Mongols back is that not having Halberdiers really hurts your Arbalist composition. You have to go with Hussars, which are good in melee, but are lacking in the pierce armor department. So Mongol Hussars I think are a little tricky, but still pretty good. And it can just make for an awkward transition going from transitioning say out of Expo into Mangudai. I've seen that happen. I've had it happen with myself at a mid-elo level. Pro players, maybe not much of an issue, but definitely at this elo, I think it is. All right, now we have the Persians, and Persians are going to wind up. They're going to wind up in the C tier. I mean, with Persians, it all boils down to the fact that you do get crossbows. You're missing Arbalist, you're missing Bracer, right? But you get every other upgrade on your crossbows, and on your cavalry archers except for Bracer as well, which is pretty interesting. There's a game out there of somebody going heavy Persian cav archers against Teutons and winning, somewhere on YouTube, and so that's something you can do. But it's the commander in technology, removing the gold cost on your expos that really gets them into the C tier. I think that can be quite strong at a mid-elo level because just being able to spam trash bows can be pretty good. So, it's a little awkward, but it's good. That's worth it for C tier. Right? They're surprisingly you don't have the worst expos in the game, and you can remove the gold cost from them, which I think is pretty strong. So, but not enough to get out of the C tier. Okay, next up we have the Poles. And Poles are going to go into the B tier. Look, you have Arbalists that are only missing the last armor upgrade, like the Mongols, so they're very strong, very viable. You have a really strong economy, where you can do things like mine stone and also get gold. You have a really nice unit in the Obu that you can pair with your Arbalist. It's a trash killer, but it does a lot of damage even to other infantry units as well. It's very strong. And the fact that it scrapes armor off of other units means that it's increasing the damage from your Arbalist or Skirmishers. So it's making your Arbalist do more damage, or your Skirms do more damage. So even pairings like Obu Skirmisher can actually be quite strong from a damage potential. Your Skirms are missing that last armor upgrade, which kind of stinks. Your heavy cavalry archers are not that strong either. So it's tricky, but you have some, that Obu Arbalist combination or Obu Skirm combination is so interesting and unusual that I think that gets it into B tier right there. So you do have those options. All right, next up we have the Portuguese. And Portuguese, you know what? I'm looking at my list. I had it in the B tier. but I really think you got to say Portuguese are an A tier archer civilization. Your archer line, right? All your military units for Portuguese have minus 20% gold cost, so that helps you at all phases of the game. Save gold, very cheap arbalists, which are fully upgraded. Your skirmishers are fully upgraded. You have a very nice trash composition. Your halberdiers are only missing squires, and actually that is sometimes helpful at a mid-elo level where unit control of multiple units can get kind of tricky. And when you have fast halberdiers, sometimes it means that they kind of wander off from your units. So the fact, I think, in a sort of counterintuitive way, the fact that it's harder for your halberdiers to kind of wander off, say from your archers, can actually be kind of a benefit at a mid-elo level. Your Castle Age cavalry archers can be a pretty strong and cost-effective unit. I believe you're missing heavy cavalry archer though, so you really can't go that farther with it. But you know it has its uses, and you research technologies faster, which means that ballistics comes in faster. All of your archer upgrades come in faster. That can enable you to get some power spikes over opponents. Um, the only thing really is that with Portuguese, you can wind up feeling just a little bit generic in the late game, but I think that's where the gold bonus can help you get to double gold compositions that can really be kind of strong. I know Portuguese have a really low win rate, but I actually think that they're a more viable civilization than I do think that we give them credit for. Okay, next up is the Saracens, and Saracens are going to be an A-tier civilization, right? Right, sitting right there with the Portuguese. You have fully upgraded arbalists that have bonus damage against buildings, which can be very strong. You have fully upgraded heavy cavalry archers, fully upgraded skirmishers. Your hand cannons are fully upgraded. Um, I think that the downsides for them is you're missing halberdiers, so you can't go arbalist halb. You do get fully upgraded hussars, so that's a pretty good combination still. And the eco bonus for Saracens of using the market, I think is kind of tricky to use at a mid-elo level. So I can actually see Saracens being S tier at a pro level, where having good macro can really exploit the market. But at a mid-elo level, I don't think it's enough, but I think it's still very, very good. All right, next up, we have Sicilians. Sicilians are going to go into the B tier, right? They're kind of an unusual civilization. You get Arbalist and Bracer, but you take less bonus damage. So basically, against skirmishers, it is as though, right, you still have the last armor upgrade, right? Which is pretty cool. But it also means that earlier phases in the game, right, that say in Feudal Age, your Arbalists are tanking more shots against skirmishers. And it also means that your skirmishers, even though they're missing the last armor, which doesn't matter against skirmisher versus skirmisher battles, your skirmishers are very strong. So I actually think Sicilian skirmishers in Feudal Age can be pretty overwhelming because you basically are only taking half the damage against other skirmishers. So you mix in a few skirms with your archers, and man, you can really take some fights against other civilizations' archer skirm combinations. You have pretty strong trash units with halberdiers and fully upgraded light cav, both of which are also taking less bonus damage. The real problems with the Sicilians is that you're missing thumb ring, that hurts your firepower. Cav archers are not that viable, and you just don't have an economic bonus that's pushing you into the archer line. Having the extra food on your farms does mean that once you get horse collar, you don't have to reseed them. But usually in a 1v1s, you're delaying horse collar until the transition from feudal to castle age. You can try and get it in feudal age, but then that's going to cause you to age up less faster, unless you're going to not get your wood upgrade, which that's going to hurt your archer production. So I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag eco wise. So we got to grade them down a little bit there. All right, next up, we have the Slavs. Slavs are going to be another one of our F tier civilizations. You're missing Arbalest, you're missing Bracer, you're missing Thumb Ring, your cavalry archers are weak. Everything towards Slavs is sending you to cavalry and infantry, so you're just not going to make it here. Spanish are going to go into the D tier. Conquistador, great unit. Fully upgraded skirmishers, right? Great unit. No gold cost needed to upgrade your blacksmith. Can make it easy to transition to some things. Um, you know what? I mean, your heavy cavalry archer, I think that they're only missing Parthian tactics. So your heavy cavalry archer is actually not that bad. I mean, the real problem is that you don't have crossbow arbalist. You don't really have any economic bonuses. And you're really pushed into, for archers, you're pushed to go down the Conquistador line, but it's just so hard to get there sometimes from a feudal opening, right? Because you can't play expos at all, and that can just get really tricky with Spanish. And plus, Conquistadors are pretty easily countered by skirmishers these days. And the other thing about them is that they cost food, so it can be kind of hard to pair them with, say, like hussars. I mean, if conquistadors now, unlike the elephant archer, I think it's fine that conquistadors cost food because they're an insanely strong unit. If they cost wood and gold, I think that might be overpowered because of the conquistador hussar pairing. So conquistadors get them into the D tier, but that's about it. All right, next up on our list is we are moseying along, I believe, in the A tier. We're gonna have the Tatars. Okay, look, you have a top 3 heavy cavalry archer, and you have the bonuses to get you there, right? That's what makes it different than some other heavy cavalry archer civilizations, right? You get free thumb ring, mind you, free Parthian tactics, so you can get upgraded quickly. Cavalry archers have more of a line of sight to help increase survivability, which I think is very important at a mid-elo level where you often tend to take your eyes off of units for a bit and then need to react. You're going to react a little slower. Having that extra line of sight, I think, really helps. You have some good eco bonuses for booming, right? Allowing you to use your sheep so as a food source longer, so you don't have to seed farms, which enables you to crank out heavy cavalry archers. Your skirmishers are fully upgraded. You have great hussars to pair with your heavy cavalry archers. You know, really the only downside is that you just don't have arbalists, but the free thumb ring means that even if you go expos and castle age, you can have an explosive power spike that lets you get to that heavy cavalry archer mass. So you can actually kind of work that behind it. So Tatars, I gotta put them in the A tier. I really do. They got a lot going for them. All right, next up, Teutons. And Teutons, going to go F tier. I mean, what is there to say? You're missing Arbalest, you're missing Bracer, you're missing Thumb Ring. You know, even if you wanted to use heavy cavalry archers, they would be the slowest and most inaccurate unit in the game. You know, it's just not going to work. You know, your skirmishers are not very good. You know, it's just not happening. All right. Next up on the list, we have Turks, and Turks are going to wind up. Turks are going to wind up. I'm actually going to put them here in the B tier. The thing with Turks is that they have probably a top 3 heavy cavalry archer. They probably have a top 3 hussar to pair with that heavy cavalry archer. You know, you have a gold bonus that can really help you crank out units. And you also have really good, really strong hand cannoneers and janissaries. Plus, you have the free chemistry, so you can start making those hand cannoneers instantly. And that is an upgrade that takes a long time to research. So you actually have a lot of archery-based options. The only problem is that you're missing Arbalists, which, you know, you have heavy cavalry archers. You know, for the Civ, it's not the worst thing. The real problem is you're missing Elite Skirmisher. And that is a major fail in Castle Age more than anything. It's not as big in Imperial Age because then, you know, presumably you're getting to Hussars with extra Pierce armor and you're mixing that into your army comp. So, you know, you know, it's predictable, so your opponent knows you're going to do it. So that is a problem. But really in Castle Age, not being able to deal with expos can be really tricky. And two, your economic bonus isn't saving you gold, it's just using it up sooner. So it really gives you more of an all-in kind of flavor. And that could be risky, I think, if you're not getting damaged. So Turks are kind of on a timer in some ways. But if you can keep your heavy cavalry archers alive, you know, you might not need to make as many of them because they're so durable. So, yeah, I think Turks can be quite strong at the archery range. And then you combine it with their other units, right? B tier. All right, next up on the list we have Vietnamese, and Vietnamese are going to find themselves into the S tier. You have more HP on your archers and skirmishers, which makes them very durable, and your skirmishers can be upgraded to the Imperial Skirmisher. That makes it probably the best skirmisher unit in the game. Your heavy cavalry archers, right? They're fully upgraded except for Parthian tactics, but you do get extra HP, so you have 92 HP heavy cavalry archers, which is not bad. Your eco upgrades synergize pretty nicely. You get halbs. Uh, you get light cavalry, at least have +4 armor, only missing blast furnace. I don't know, it's not that bad, actually, I think. And plus the bonus of knowing where your opponent is in the early game, that can enable you to get some nice early aggression. So I think Vietnamese, your archers have a lot going for them. All right, now finally, right, we're going to go into, so this is going to be a tricky one here. We're going to put this, we're actually going to put Vikings in the B tier. I'm going to tell you why. Well, this is why they're good. They have a fantastic economy, maybe the best economy in the game. And you do have Arbalist, Bracer, etc. Right? As of right now, Viking Arbalists are fully upgraded, which means their skirmishers are fully upgraded as well. But word on the street is that they're going to miss Thumb Ring in the next patch update. I'm factoring that into this video since we're kind of close to the November patch coming out. If they wind up keeping Thumb Ring, I think there's a case to be made that they're A tier, but let me make the case for them being B tier either way, right? You don't have halberdiers, but you do have pretty tanky pikemen. That's okay. That's okay, but you're still not going to do as much. You're still not going to do great damage to cavalry units. Even though the chieftain's technology is out there, it's been made more expensive. It's really hard to get to. You have terrible cavalry, so you can't go something like Arbalist Hussar. So typically, Vikings, when you see archers, you go something like Arbalist, Siege Ram, Pikemen. I think with Vikings, you're just really on a timer with Viking archers. Like I said, here, let's do it this way. If they keep Thumb Ring, A tier. But if they lose Thumb Ring, B tier. Right? Because that really hurts your DPS and your Arbalist. And, quite frankly, it doesn't affect your skirmisher line that much. But when you already have pretty bad trash units, I think for Vikings, you're actually losing. Like, your trash units are already so bad with Vikings in the late game that I think you really need to have the fully upgraded skirmishers for just a little bit more accuracy. So yeah, that's what we're going with that. So yeah, so all right, so now we're at the end of the video. Just gonna look over this. I think I agree with all of this. Even the Viking pick is it's a bit conditional, right? Their placement, but either way, they that's where they're gonna land. And we're gonna, on this channel, we have an eye towards the future. So, anyways, with all that being said, yeah, this is our 1v1 Mid-ELO Archer tier list. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like the video and my commentary, my thought process, I encourage you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you can check me out on Twitch. All right, I'll put my link to my Twitch channel in the description below. I stream a lot of recordings of my age games as I'm trying to get better to break out of the mid-elo sort of rank, and I also do a lot of other things like I have live study sessions and things like that too, and so we're this whole my whole image is built around this scholar warrior kind of mindset, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing tier list videos and really thinking like this, because thinking deeply about strategy, right? I mean, I know we're all here, we play a video game, and but playing a strategy video game, I think is really good for the mind, and I don't know, I think it's good for your potential as a human being, honestly. But I mean, you always got to remember it's a game and remember what it's for, and not lose sight of what it's for. And so, but thinking deeply, thinking strongly about these sort of things, I don't know. I think that there's positive utility in it, but maybe that's just me. And that was my soapbox. All right, we're going to end this video on my soapbox. We're all clean with that soap, and I'll see you out there, so fresh and so clean out there on the ladder. Peace.